Hi, and welcome to the Connext Live. This is our 26th week of doing this. It's our half year mark. And we're going to be talking with Lisa Nirell today about a hot topic in both the marketing industry and the CX industry. And that is, what is the role of CXOs and CMOs? In particular, Lisa here has a background in doing CMO work. She has a CMO advocate group, and she puts together groups in DC and in Atlanta. So we're going to talk about the perspective of what is the role of the CMO in particular in creating good customer experiences. So welcome, Lisa. I appreciate you coming and taking time with us today.
Oh, it's great to see you, Mark. Thanks for inviting me.
Sure. So tell us a little bit about, first of all, your groups and what it is you do with the CMO area.
Let's take a look right now through the lens of one of the things that a member recently told me. We are working across the world right now with CMOs who want to create more sustainable growth companies and better lives. And one of them came to me and said, things have gotten a lot worse during the pandemic. I feel more isolated than ever before. And with all of us over obsessed with return to work policies, we're spending way too much time gazing at our navel. We're losing sight of our customers. We're losing sight of what our competitors are doing. So our forums, called the Marketing Growth Leaders, gather people from now across the country, Mark, not just Atlanta and
Oh,
DC,
good.
to help them not only solve problems, but innovate and steal ideas from people in non-competing industries so that, again, they can have more sustainable growth strategies and better lives. Um, you know, if you read the Wall Street Journal this morning, there are now 9.1 million unfilled jobs in the United States, and that number has grown quite a bit.
Wow.
So CMOs have a lot of other places they can work, a lot of job opportunities. So we want to help them improve the companies where they're at as much as we possibly can.
Excellent. So the world of CX is a little bit different in my experience as a lifelong marketing researcher. And when I've become into the industry as it's been formalized, I found that there's a lot of, at least within the people I've come across, there's some competition in the C-suite for who owns, who creates, who delivers on customer experience. And we talk about that a lot in these groups that we have. So I would like to get your perspective on, who owns and who creates, and who's responsible for the customer experience in the C-suite specifically.
Wow, that is the $1 million question, isn't it? I would ask people to make sure you, first of all, and some of the things I'm going to be sharing today are contrary perhaps to what other forum guests have said in the past. But
Mhm.
as I look at the 39 live streams that I have partnered with LinkedIn to produce, as well as the 10 years of guided private discussions that I have led with CMOs, chief experience officers, and growth leaders, here's what I have learned: that we have reached a pivot point in our world where it's not about job function, it's about really understanding, what do your customers value? So instead of looking at how do we organize our companies or our associations for optimal performance, we need to take a look at, how clearly do we all understand what our customers value, and then build the talent accordingly.
Mhm.
So again, as I said earlier, this is a time where a lot of people are obsessing about return to work policies. How do we organize our companies? No, I'm saying don't lose track of the customer and what they value, and then adapt and shift as you need to, and as we all emerge like those darn cicadas out of the pandemic. Don't you feel like a cicada sometimes, like as we go through this pandemic and we're slowly creating a new way of living, that we've got to do the same and make sure we don't lose sight of those customer values?
As long as we don't wait 17 years for the next time to come up. They had a longer quarantine than we did. But it's fascinating that they came out at the same time the world's coming back to life. But to the point of who owns marketing, who owns the customer experience. Now, it may be helpful to sort of understand what is your point of view of customer experience, and what does that mean to a marketing person?
Well, 5 years ago, when we were sitting around the table and talking to our marketing growth leaders, they were very much like, well, some of us are thinking of creating a customer experience profession or discipline or department. But now, boy, has that changed, 5 years later. Now, at least half of our members and my 14,000 followers are saying, oh no, this is an essential function. Now, here's where things get really interesting, Mark. When I look at the number of people who are unwilling to create a customer experience function by itself and are looking now to democratize customer experience, that's really interesting. I spoke with a gentleman who was the co-founder of the TD Ameritrade Innovation Center recently,
Mm-hmm.
and his name is Phil Kiken.
Yeah,
That role, I think you connected us.
yeah, yeah. He's a good guy.
He's a great guy. And when Charles Schwab bought TD Ameritrade, he moved on to an organization called the Farm Credit Bureau.
Mm-hmm.
And, after they had wild success at building these new experiments and customer experience, user experience tests at TD Ameritrade, he moved on to the Farm Credit Bureau, a smaller organization, about 1,800 people. And it was fascinating because he said, and I quote, people need to stop treating customers' experience as a skill and treat it more like a cultural norm.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that's a zinger. Maybe we're reaching a new evolution of customer experience, much like we have reached a new level of evolution for marketing professionals. I'd love to know too, Mark, in this discussion right now, if anyone could put in the chat, what is your role? What is your current title or role? It would be fun to know what people are doing in their organizations now, and whether it's a cultural norm or it's a very specific siloed function.
Great. That would love to see it. Yeah, go ahead and type in your roles there, if you will, in any terms you want to use. In sort of working a lot in the CX industry the past 10 years, and in looking at a lot of things on LinkedIn as well, I've found that there are over 90 different titles that are directly related to CX.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, and there are about 4 or 5 of them are in C-suite. There's the customer, centricity officer. There's the customer experience officer. There's the customer relationship officer. These things exist, and so when you get into all those different type of titles, even as I'm looking here and seeing what people are saying, and which you can see as well, I'm a design principal in a consulting company, a fractional CMO. Business development, of course, director of association, an educator and consultant. Those are some of the fun business analysts for Andre down in South Africa. And then, of course, Carl, when you were in the corporate role, a very siloed role with no direct leadership support. And so this age that we're in right now, there's a lot going on with the whole idea of, okay, who owns it, who creates it, who delivers it. Do you? And I'll give you my perception on it and get your feedback. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is what I've found, and I just as far as C-suite structure. Okay. The idea of customer experience has to balance what is being promised and what is being delivered. They have to understand the customer very well at all touch points, not only for designing things, but also for managing the experience ongoing. And those management touch points are different than what we experience in marketing research, for instance. So I think that the role of in the C-suite specifically is to be that the CEO literally has always been the person that carries the torch for the brand. Literally, they're the ones who say this is the brand standard, this is what goes on. But they're busy. They're busy doing things in financial. They're busy doing things in IT and infrastructure and labor, and et cetera, et cetera. So they don't always have time to keep their eye on the balance. And I think that role sits perfectly between the CXO. I mean, the CXO sits perfectly between the CMO, the COO, the CIO. Those three roles are directly related in delivery and expectation for customers. What are your thoughts on that?
You mean in terms of the different structures? That was, you gave me a lot of great information there, so I'm not sure how you want to unpack it.
Well, the main thing here is there a role, do you see CXO in the C-suite? Is that infringing on the CMO's territory? Are there things the CMO should let the CXO handle? And what do you think about that tension that's happening now in those C-suites because of the new role in the past however many years of a CXO who has to balance what's happening between marketing and operations?
I don't think anything's going to change, Mark, and we're going to continue to have this debate unless every stakeholder in the organization carves out time in their schedule to go out and actually spend time with customers, and that we return to empathy and understanding of what our customers are going through. If we continue to again over invest time and energy in trying to build the perfect organization, we're going to be losing sight of something really important and something unfortunately that happened during the pandemic. We spent so much time behind screens that we lost our ability to practice empathy. We lost our ability to sit face to face with people and understand that some of us have lost people during the pandemic, that customers suffer, and we have ways of helping them reduce suffering through our solutions or our services. And we have gotten a little too comfortable hiding behind social media or an org chart. So my encouragement is, if your board members or your C-suite are again spending most of their time obsessing about an org chart and not spending ample time in front of customers to understand what struggles they're going through. I mean, every one of us here in this session today should be following my friend in Switzerland, Martin Lindstrom, who spent time with 3,000 people in their homes when he was working for some of his big clients like Swissair and Lego, so that their C-suite and their board members at those given organizations would stop making strategic decisions based on a spreadsheet and an org chart, and the impact on their ability to change how they connected with customers and the impact they had on product development, user design, user experience was monumental. And I invite and challenge each of you here, no matter what your role is, to do something the same.
Excellent. We have a couple of comments here, and I do want to get to some of the questions. So if anyone has other questions, please post it. I'm going to bring up Michael in just a moment, but and that's going to be Michael Wolf. But we have a comment here from Michael Seltz. He says, looked at another way, our physical separation has forced us to be more mindful and deliberate about empathy. And we had a talk with someone earlier about digital empathy. You know, how do you have that connection, right?
Yeah, is that an oxymoron like jumbo shrimp?
I don't know. You know, I mean, the digital world, you know, this has been talked about since, you know, since it became a thing. The idea of high tech. You've heard high tech, high touch. That was, you know, a while back. But the idea of high tech, high touch, a lot of people are craving that high touch. And I think it's going to start with families and shopping and just trying to get back to some sense of normalcy. But at the same time, as an event planner, I'm looking at it saying, okay, when can we get back together and experience some of that high touch? Because, it is. It creates a craving, a sense of cabin fever, if you will. You know, that I
Oh,
think.
it absolutely did. I mean, just what it at Las Vegas is an $11 billion conference industry unto itself, and they're reporting huge spikes in registrations and revenue, and that, as you said, that craving. But it's going to take some time. This isn't going to happen next week.
Hmm. Okay, so what I'd like to do is we have Michael Wolf. Do you have a question or a comment you'd like to share with everybody? Michael Wolf, are you there? Well, I guess he
Yes,
disappeared.
yes, yes,
Oh,
yes.
there he is. Okay, great.
So,
Hi, Michael.
hi there, Lisa.
Turn your camera on as well if you'd like.
Nah, no, I'm not that pretty. Okay, so I'm involved in a project which is quite interesting right now. It's in the UK. This is with what I I'm calling it a quasi-governmental organization, simply because they're basically what they do is funded by the government, even though they're not part of the government. They are involved in banking regulation. And it seems like the banking industry in the UK has an antitrust problem. So the government works with this agency. The government actually gives money to this agency who provides a service to bank customers to switch banks. You don't like your bank? We'll do all of the work, the paperwork, all of the hassle required to switch you from one bank to another. So I'm doing models of what drives switching. So what I've found is that there are kind of three groups of banks in the UK: the really, really, really big banks, and then there's some banks in the middle. Seems like the big banks also own the banks in the middle, and then there's some what they call small digital banks. So these banks in the middle are like cratering, just terrible. And my model has a customer experience metric, which is really important. What's their experience going through this process with this company to switch banks? So it's kind of a satisfaction measure. But the internet banks are like going crazy. They're just increasing, more and more people going to them, and these banks in the middle is kind of losing. And I know that what this is a difference in customer experience.
So, Michael, let me ask you, is there a question in this, or is this just a...
Yeah, the question is, there's a difference in customer experience between these banks that are losing their lunch and these internet banks who are smaller, who are taking business from them.
Mm-hmm.
How can I actually determine what is the customer experience that differentiates these banks that are winning versus those that are not? Because I know that's a major part of the solution here.
Okay, let's discuss that. Lisa, do you have a thought on that?
Well, the first thing, I mean, that's a fascinating shift there, Michael. The question is, how many fewer constraints does that internet bank have compared to the bricks and mortar bank that allows them to create a culture of experimentation with customers? If I were advising that organization, the first thing I would do is I would get permission to reach out to the people who signed up with the internet banks, and I'd say, tell me what made you sign up. How did that feel? Why did you enjoy? What did you enjoy? What did you not enjoy? And what did you take away from that experience? And I would just go directly to the customers and ask them. There are some nuggets of gold in there. How about you, Mark?
You know, I just think in terms of simplicity, and you nailed it right on the head there, and that is whether you have support structures you have to continue to support, like brick and mortar, right, or not. You know, and I think that the pandemic has been an incredible leveling field for new businesses and for innovation. Anyone who has the skills has the tools now to do it with our computers as far as a digital presence goes. Getting back to physical is where the real challenge is, I think, for a lot of people when it comes to the high tech, high touch. That's my thought on it. It's created a lot of opportunities.
Well, my hypothesis is these internet banks, they don't have branches.
Yeah, they don't have the overhead.
The banks in the middle do.
Mm-hmm.
And since we were in a period of time when the interpersonal connection between depositors and bank people was gone.
Mm-hmm.
So that leveled the playing field. So somebody says, well, why am I going to this other big bank when I can just do it all online?
Well, you remember when ATMs first came out, you probably did a study on it. I know you've been in a lot of companies like Coca-Cola and Home Depot, et cetera. You remember when the ATMs first came out, we were all a little bit trepid about using it. You had to have a voice with it. Tilly the teller. Remember that? And now we're all used to it. I think also there are times when there was, Jim's got the question, when was the last time you were literally in a bank? Nowadays, I think a lot of that also changed with the rating systems, because it used to be you had to go in on your character with references and blah, 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 the old school stuff. And then now it's all your number. It's just you're a number, and you got that number, you either get it or you don't. So it's become a little bit more commoditized in my field, and that is going to probably lead to more relationship stuff. What does relationship mean? What is a touch point in banking? Is it now? For me, it's online. If their online doesn't work, I'm pissed. I don't even know what to do if it's not working on my phone or online. But yeah, I don't want to get off topic on that. We only have one more question here. And let's see what's going on here with Patty. Patty, come on up.
Hey, Patty.
So I have a question about the customer journey map and marketing and how you tie those two things together and where you find your priorities inside the customer journey map, because there's so many touch points along there where marketing could have an active role with that. So I was wondering how you look at that and how you reconcile where marketing should be with that.
Yes. Well, Patty, that's a great question, because I see some of my CMO clients are using customer journey mapping, and some are using something called a value cycle. I'm advising a billion-dollar organization right now that instead of focusing their marketing or their digital teams on this question, they said, what's our business problem? They had a business problem of they're missing their numbers by $40 million, their revenue targets. So they said, well, let's look at how we interact with our customers. And what they learned is they were ignoring a huge part of the life cycle of their customer interactions, which was before people became customers. So they said, let's not just look at this through a journey map. Let's look at it through through what do our customers value that we're not even paying attention to, and let's look more at life cycle of a customer in general versus just their experience before they, the experience of them buying from us. So they made quite a bit of a shift in the questions they were asking around that. So we're hoping that they have some new insights that they can act on there.
What do you think, Patty? Have you noticed anything in your world on that as well?
I think that I think some of the pieces that are missing when people are looking at the customer journey map, I think you can still get them into that journey map in and of itself, because if you have potential customers that are out there that are in those pre-purchase phases and they're not quite getting to that purchase phase, there's some kind of disconnect that's happening in understanding that. And the reason I ask the question is because we spend so much CX time talking about loyalty and retention and all of those things. And I understand why that's so important, because the cost is so much less and certainly the return is much greater. But I sometimes wonder if we're not missing out on the acquisition and how we can make that easier and how we can make it less expensive to an organization.
In your time at Neiman, Marcus, how did you guys deal with that? Was it more focused on, understanding the customer value, or was it about, setting up touch points and monitoring them?
You know, it's funny you should ask me that question, Mark, because we were doing customer journey mapping there long before it ever had that title to it. And so we were figuring out what was happening with the customer in that whole way. And we looked at it as pre-purchase, purchase, and post-purchase. And then we broke it down inside of those, and we looked at who our customers were that had opportunity to grow in terms of wallet share. We looked at who our customers were that had opportunity to bring us other customers. And then we also looked at who were the potential customers out there that we could land and bring into the store. So we kind of broke it down that way and just looked at it. And then we would map it out based on that, looking at where were we, how are we doing with prospecting? So each and every sales manager and each and every sales associate had a plan of different segments of customers that they were working on and working toward. And they were all in different phases of the journey map and in the life cycle. I mean, we even included customers that were potentially at risk for one reason or another inside of that. So we just broke it down. You know, the really big customers, the customers that were 500, 600, $1 million customer, something like that, those belonged pretty much to me as the general manager, and to the sales associate. But the rest of the customers that fell anywhere from like a 10K to the 150, 250 spend really belonged to the other associates. And so we would look for ways on how are we going to grow that, and how are we going to attract more, and then how are we going to take what we have and have them help us build more.
Interesting. Thank you for that. We just have time for one more question before I need to stop the recording and we go into the breakouts. But Scott, you have something to contribute here as well?
Yes, thank you, Mark. Hey, Patty, fabulous question. I think you made your way to the answer to your own question, which is obvious. Which is fabulous. I think the challenge in my experience is that the marketing folks look at the buying journey at the front end, and you referred to kind of what happens with an upset customer at the end. The end-to-end journey has a little bit of buying, or a little bit of searching, a little bit of buying, and then a whole lot of experience with the company that goes round and round and round. And then they either are happy to stay or they're not happy and they leave. So I think the answer to this question might be, what is the scope of the journey that we're talking about? Is it life cycle end-to-end, life cycle value, or is it the getting a new customer journey? And some of the answer can be had by just aligning what we mean by the scope of the journey, I think.
That's a fascinating topic, and Lisa, I'm going to let you give your final thoughts on that. And we're not going to solve the world's issues today. We understand that, but these are really critical things to understand roles and responsibilities. Lisa.
Hey, Mark, can I throw one more thing out
Sure.
just real quickly here? And that is that the marketing for, like in our case at Neiman's, and I think this is applicable to many other cases as well, is that the marketing could happen on the sales end with the selling team and all of that. But we also had that partnership with our corporate team in terms of where we needed their help in building the relationships with our customers and in getting them going. So for us, it was a duality between that. So that's why I was wondering about how other organizations look at it and why I asked the question. And thank you very much for your answer and for your input.
Okay, well, so we're done with our recording. Lisa, do you have any final comments for us? I'm sorry we're running a little over 2:00. We had a little bit of a late start, but any closing thoughts?
Yes, first of all, I apologize. I had a little technical glitch there at the beginning. I welcome people to come and join our Mindful Marketer live streams. We host them in partnership with LinkedIn 3 times a month on Fridays, 1:30 p.m. Eastern. And many of our topics are designed around how to be more mindful marketers. And believe me, talking about how to improve and optimize that customer experience comes up very often. So I hope you'll join, and you can post questions for our great guests, as well as learn more about my body of work on Fridays. And I also put my free learning bonuses in the chat for those who want to follow my work and build stronger relationships with senior marketing leaders. We are all in this new world together. There is no new normal. There is no more normal.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. This has been a very insightful discussion, as anticipated. So I appreciate your time here, and we're going to go ahead and close up the show here. But before we do that, I do want to remind everyone that we are coming back in person this fall. We're going to be in Boston with our first event. It's going to be on this September 21st. Then we're going to be in Chicago in October, on October 19th. Then Atlanta on November 9th, and then Austin, Texas on December 14th. We also have dates all through next year, and we'll be in each of these markets annually. So make sure you go and check out our speaker page at cxforums.org. If you would like to participate in any of our in-person events, now would be a great time to get involved. So thank you much. Appreciate it. Everyone have a great day. And this recording is going to stop, and we're going to go right into networking. If you were here, you'd meet people too.